Hello friends, today we are going to continue with the cerebral palsy. So this is fourth lecture of cerebral palsy. In the previous lecture, we have already started the physiotherapy management and we have already covered the neurodevelopmental therapy approach, facilitation and inhibition techniques, as well as sensory integration approach. So remaining approaches we will be considering here. Now, first approach for today's lecture is CIMT. So, full form is Constraint Induced Movement Therapy. Many times it is also abbreviated as CI, but most of the time it is abbreviated as CIMT. So, what is the concept behind this? So, just consider that patient's right side is affected and left side is normal. Okay, right side is affected and left side is normal. So, what happens if you give any object to the patient? Okay, so patient will always prefer left side to hold that object. Why? Because it is normal. Okay, right side it is not paralyzed. If the right side is paralyzed, then there is no meaning of doing this CIMT. At least there should be power on right side. Okay, so what we are doing, we are intentionally preventing movement of normal side, that is left side for our example. Clear? So compulsorily the child will have to use his or her right side. So the right side will be activated. Clear? So what is the concept? In short, we have to prevent movement of normal side intentionally. So the child will have to use affected side compulsorily. Clear? So that will activate affected side. But again, remember, if that side is totally paralyzed, then there is no use of CIMT. Okay, at least it should be having some movement. Clear? So what is CIMT? So it is the form of rehabilitation therapy that improves upper extremity function. So this is specially designed for upper extremity function in CNS disorders by increasing the use of their affected upper limb. Clear? So this is not only for cerebral palsy patient, this will be useful for stroke patients also. Clear? And this therapy is recommended by American Stroke Association, and that will be applicable for CP also. Now in this figure you can see, so observe child's right and left side. Clear? So on left side you can see there is one sling. Okay, it is known as sling, it is known as immobilizer. Okay, it is also known as meat. Clear? So all these are synonyms. So here the child will not be able to hold the things with left side. So here the left side is normal. Clear? Okay, now the child wants to hold something or grasp any object, so child will have to compulsorily use his right side. Clear? So definitely if the child is using right side, so it will be activated. So in this example we have already seen that left side it is having meat, immobilizer or sling. All three are synonyms. So child is not able to hold the things, so the child will be holding with right side. Clear? So right side will be activated. Clear? Now, CIMT approach was given by Edward Taub. Now, there should be some protocols. For example, if I am immobilizing the normal side, so there should be protocol. Otherwise, the normal side will become weak. Clear? So, what are these protocols? So, we have to give this therapy for 6 hours a day, okay, for 10 days over a period of 14 days. Clear? So we can design the activities in such a way that child will be using this type of the affected side. Okay, how many hours in a day? So that is 6 hours a day. How many days? So in 2 weeks, that is in the period of 14 days, at least 10 days. Clear? Okay, this is treatment part. Okay, this activity periods are there. 6 hours means when the child is playing. Okay, 6 hours, it's not like that when the child is sleeping, so those hours will also be counted. Okay, this is the maximum activity period in the daytime. Okay, what about remaining hours? Okay, 6 hours patient is wearing this, so what about the remaining hours? So other than this, during the waking hours, okay, 90% of the hours this sling should be on. Clear? So this sling should be on during the 90% of waking hours. Clear? Okay, now there are various protocols, so they are known as modified CIMT. So different authors, different scientists, different clinicians, they recommend different protocols. So you can use any one of this because all of these are helpful. Clear? All of these they are working similarly. Clear? So these are like dosage of drugs. Clear? Like initially the azithromycin was given for 3 days. Now it is the new guideline that it should be continued for 5 days. Clear? So these are research based. Dosage will increase or decrease. Clear? So here also it is dosage only for CIMT. Clear? So there are 3 modified CIMT protocols. So which are they? So first modified CIMT protocol is telling that we should use this protocol for 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week for 10 consecutive weeks. Clear? What about remaining hours? So for remaining hours at home, patient will have to use this immobilizer, okay, for 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 10 weeks. Clear? So that is on normal side, obviously, on unaffected side. Now, second modified CIMT protocol, what it is recommending? So it is recommending for 2 hours per day, 5 days per week for 3 weeks. Now, third modified CIMT protocol, so it is recommending use of this immobilizer for 5 hours per day, that is also in divided session, 2 morning hours and 3 afternoon hours, okay, for 2 consecutive weeks. Now, there are various treatment protocols to reduce the muscle tone, to increase the muscle tone, to increase the muscle strength. Clear? So which are they? We are learning one by one. So which are the treatment possible for reduction of muscle tone? So first is slow sustained stretching. So for example, if the bicep is spastic, we have to give very slow and sustained elbow extension. Clear? So that is slow sustained stretching along with shoulder extension. So actually what we are doing, we are stretching bicep, but this stretching should be very slow in speed and it should be sustained, it should be maintained for at least 30 seconds or sometimes even more. Then anti-spastic positioning or weight bearing. For example, we have spasticity present in flexors of wrist. Okay, so these are long flexors of forearm. So if they are spastic, we have to stretch them and we have to give position to the patient in such a way that they are in stretch position, they are in lengthened position. For example, you can think of quadruped position where your long flexors of forearm will be stretched for a prolonged period of time. Okay, you can simply give weight bearing in sitting also, okay, in such a way that wrist is maintained into extension. So this weight bearing activity will be reducing your muscle tone, okay, and antispastic positioning, that will be also reducing your muscle tone. Okay, antispastic positioning may be given without weight bearing also. For example, you are maintaining it manually, you are maintaining it by splint, you are maintaining by any other serial casting. Clear? So that will come in this list. So every time antispastic positioning is not weight bearing. Clear? It may be in different form also, but in short we can say that antispastic positioning means it is lengthened position of spastic muscle that will be maintained for prolonged period of time. Now slow icing. Okay, so ice cubes will be best to reduce the muscle tone. Clear? But again we have to take care that whatever the ice cubes they are used, okay, they are not producing any effect on skin. Clear? So there should not be any type of the frostbite or there should not be reddening of skin. So we have to take care of that. Otherwise slow and sustained icing will be best protocol for reduction of muscle tone. Low frequency vibrator, so they are already available in markets. Okay, so if you give vibrator over the muscle belly, so that will also reduce the muscle tone. How it is working? So very simple phenomena is that due to continuous stimulation by vibration, the Golgi tendon will get fatigued and it will stop firing. So ultimately it will reduce the muscle tone. Now electrical stimulation to antagonist muscle. So definitely if my wrist flexors they are spastic, I should give electrical stimulation to my wrist extensors. So wrist extensors will contract by electrical stimulation. So wrist flexors will get relaxation. Yes, so definitely if the wrist flexors they are getting relaxation as per reciprocal inhibition. If agonist contract, antagonist will get relaxed. Clear? So if my wrist extensors they will contract by electrical stimulation, wrist flexors will get relaxed. Clear? So what we have to understand here, so that is reciprocal inhibition. Clear? So that will reduce the spasticity in our wrist flexors. Now it is also proved that if you give electrical stimulation to spastic muscle, that will also reduce muscle tone. How? So that is by autogenic inhibition. Clear? Like if my bicep is spastic, so I give electrical stimulation to bicep. So after the contraction of bicep with electrical stimulation, it will get relaxed by autogenic inhibition. Okay, so that will also reduce the spasticity. Use of the splints, so that is very simple. You give the splints that will maintain this spastic muscle into lengthened position for a prolonged period of time, and that will reduce the spasticity. Serial casting, so in severe cases the plaster will be given, okay, and based on the requirement of the patient, on an average we can consider 2 weeks. Okay, for example, if my calf is having contracture, so some amount of dorsiflexion will be done under the anesthesia. Okay, mostly it is done 10 to 15 degree every time. So just imagine that foot is having plantar flexion type of the posture, calf is severely tight. Okay, plantar flexion is near about 40 degree. Clear? So 10 to 15 degree will be stretched under the effect of anesthesia. Then plaster cast will be given, so that whatever the stretching is given to the calf under the anesthesia, that will be maintained under the plaster. It will be revised again at the interval of 2 weeks. So further increase of 10 to 15 degree will be taken. Okay, and again the plaster cast will be given. Okay, so this is nothing but serial plaster casting. Okay, so there will be anesthesia, okay, that will stretch the muscle, okay, by manual effort, and then plaster cast, again repeat it frequently. Clear? So that is nothing but serial casting. Now to improve the muscle tone, what can be done? So weight bearing has advantage. Okay, if the tone is less, weight bearing will increase the tone. If the tone is more, weight bearing will reduce the tone. In short, we can say that weight bearing will normalize the muscle tone. Joint approximation, that is always facilitatory to increase the muscle tone. Clear? But the thing is, when the joint is injured or inflamed, this compression or approximation should not be practiced. Fast stroking with the brush. Okay, so again that will be stimulating your nervous system, that is CNS stimulant. Many times it is also explained under the Roots approach, that if you give fast stroking or fast icing, okay, so that will stimulate your central nervous system. Yeah, that will activate your receptors, and ultimately the tone will increase. High frequency vibration. So high frequency vibration will increase the muscle tone, where the low frequency vibration was decreasing the muscle tone. Now quick icing. So icing is most frequently used tool, okay, or method in clinical settings and in hospital settings whenever you have paralysis. Clear? Because when the power is zero or where there is complete paralysis, so by giving fast stroke of icing, we are trying to activate the muscle and central nervous system. Same is applicable for our cerebral palsy patient. Quick icing will activate the muscle and central nervous system. So that is quick icing to improve the muscle tone. Now to improve the muscle strength. Okay, so there are various remedies that we already know. So we can start with the mat activity. Okay, different mat activities, they need core contraction, weight bearings, against gravity movement. Clear? So all this will increase the movement strength. Then closed chain exercise. So again the closed chain exercise will need co-contraction of muscle, co-contraction of agonist and antagonist. So this will also increase our muscle strength, and this weight bearing or closed chain exercise will be also useful in day-to-day activity. Okay, so it is nothing but functional task. Okay, so that is nothing but kneeling, half kneeling, standing, okay, walking, all these are different closed chain exercises. Then vestibular ball push with upper extremity and lower extremity. Clear? So that will be also increasing your strength, because that is type of functional activity. Clear? Exercise on vestibular ball. So by giving sitting position or by giving side lying position on the vestibular ball, we can increase the strength, because vestibular ball is one type of the dynamic surface. So to maintain the posture, to maintain the balance, the child will have to activate their muscles. Clear? So this exercise on dynamic surface, so that is vestibular ball, will be also useful to increase the strength of muscle. Use of mechanical resistance. So if the child is cooperative, okay, and child is able to understand command, and child is also motivated, so you can give different types of the dumbbells, springs, TheraBand. Okay, those will be useful for giving resistance to different exercises. Clear? So that is nothing but use of mechanical resistance. Now in this we have to take care that if the child's grip is weak, okay, if the child's grip is weak, then the use of free weight is not advisable, like dumbbell, etc. Clear? So in that case you can use sandbags. Why? Because if the grip is weak, so it is possible that during exercise that dumbbell may fall and may injure patient's lower limb. So in that case we have to be careful, but if the grip is good, definitely we can think of dumbbells. Otherwise go for sandbag, because sandbag they will not fall, they are tied by us. Now use of TheraBand, so definitely as we discuss it will be helpful. Okay, now coming to hippotherapy. So what is the meaning of hippo? Okay, so hippo is Greek word. Okay, it means horse. So hippotherapy means what? It means treatment with the help of horse. Clear? So hippotherapy means we are using horse for therapy purpose or treatment purpose. So what is it? So it is the term that refers to the use of movement of horse by either physical therapist, occupational therapist and speech language therapist to address impairments, functional limitations and disability in patients with neuromusculoskeletal dysfunction. Clear? So in hippotherapy we need one team. Okay, only the therapist will not be sufficient. So one will be the therapist, because he will be guiding what to do, what not to do, and horse handler, so that will be the person who is controlling the movement of horse, because horse is live animal. So if horse gets out of control, we may be in trouble. Okay, and one or two side walkers, so one attender we can say, or helpers, those will be by the side of horse, so that if the child is falling he can prevent, and definitely the horse. Now we can see on the left side you can see horse and patient, on right side you can see that patient is sitting on horse. Now this treatment session is mainly for 30 to 60 minutes. Okay, and that is planned based on goals set by therapist. Okay, so for example in this figure you can see that child is practicing on horse. Okay, why this ring? Clear? So here the goal may be to develop the coordination or to produce the anti gravity movement of the upper limb, or we can say overhead movement of upper limb. Clear? So all this may be the goal for this exercise, but for your child what are the goals that you have to set? Okay, hippotherapy, what it will be improving? So it will be improving balance, it will be improving postural control, it will be improving your sensory motor function, and definitely the head and neck control, because see, horse is dynamic surface. Clear? Where the child is sitting. So when the horse is moving, your balance should be sufficient that you are not falling. Even when the horse is standing, your balance should be sufficient. Okay, now as the horse is moving continuously, you have to adjust your posture, so that will also develop your postural control. You are getting sensory motor information continuously. Okay, how that we will understand in the next slides. And definitely as it is giving anti-gravity control, that you have to maintain your head and neck position. Clear? So your control of head and neck will also increase. Clear? So there are various benefits to different systems of our body. So in musculoskeletal system, if we see, so it will increase the strength, it will increase the flexibility, and it will also improve the postural alignment. If we think of neuromuscular system, so definitely the balance reactions will be activated. So every time the child will try, that he or she is not falling. Clear? So he or she will be adjusting himself or herself. So balance reactions are activated. Because of continuous vibrations, those are coming because of movement of horse, the spasticity will also decrease. Clear? And coordination will develop. So in one of the figure in the previous slide, we already have seen that coordination exercise was given by the use of ring. Clear? So coordination will also improve. Then respiratory system, so vital capacity will increase. Okay, in the child. Sitting position, if we consider, so the diaphragm will be at the lowest position. Clear? So in the sitting, definitely the inspiratory capacity will increase. And as you are moving on horse, clear, so you are also giving more stress to your respiratory system, so ultimately your inspiratory capacity will increase. Psychological, so definitely if you are able to ride the horse, your confidence and self-esteem will increase. So that is also very important, that if I can do this activity on horse, definitely I will be able to perform it without horse, clear, on stable surface. So that will increase your self-esteem, that will increase your confidence. So that is benefit to our psychological system. Now, which activities we can plan, clear. So for example, reaching. So in this figure we can see that the child is reaching to put this ball into the basket. Okay, so that is nothing but reach outs. So reach outs, how they are helpful? So in case of reach outs, we are moving our position of center of gravity. Okay, so in this photograph you can see that when the child will be putting this ball inside this basket, so the center of gravity is moving anteriorly. Again, when the child is coming back to normal position, the center of gravity will come posteriorly. So while putting the ball into the basket, the child will be moving the center of gravity anteriorly, and then again the child will regain the position of center of gravity over base of support. So that is nothing but reaching activity. Different balance activities, clear, like simple small perturbation can be tried, clear. So that is balance reaction will be activated. Even though you don't give any type of the perturbation manually, the horse movement that itself, it is giving challenge in balance. So the balance will be activated and child will have to maintain balance anyhow to prevent the fall, clear. Now playing catch, so child will be throwing the ball and child will be catching, clear. So here also the child is developing his or her balance. Standing in stirrups or on saddle, so in this picture also you can see that child is standing, so it is very challenging to stand on horse. So that will also increase child's standing capacity, clear. And various positions like quadruped position, kneeling, okay, sitting, so all these are different positions, those can be tried on horse, clear. So that will increase child's confidence. But again, whatever the activities we are giving, that should be appropriate, okay. And anyhow we have to take care, it is our responsibility that child is not falling. With proper preparations only we should try this hippotherapy, clear. If the proper attenders are not there, or if the horse handler is not available, we should never try this. Now what patient is receiving from this, okay, so patient is receiving proprioceptive input. We all know that whatever the exercise you are planning on horse, it may be simple active movement or lower limbs movement, so there will be various position of the joints, those will be done here, okay. So because of the different movements of the joints or different movements positions, clear, you will be getting proprioceptive input, clear. Then vestibular input, so as the horse is moving, your head is also moving in relation to environment, and there will be some movement of the head in relation to your remaining part of the body, clear. So definitely the head movement in relation to your remaining part of the body as well as in relation to environment, that will stimulate your vestibular system. Then coming to tactile input, so definitely the child is in contact with horse, clear. So few body parts of the horse, they are coming in contact with child, clear, okay. So that is nothing but that will be activating your touch, okay, or child's tactile system will be activated. Auditory input, so continuous instructions coming from attender, continuous instruction coming from physiotherapist, continuous instruction coming from horse handler, so that will make the child to make the position accordingly, clear. So those are nothing but type of auditory cues, okay. So this auditory cues will be helpful to child to react properly, okay, to environment. So that is importance of auditory input. And visual flow, so as the horse is moving, so surrounding will also move, okay. So different visual stimuli, they are coming to child's visual system, yeah. So this proprioceptive by the movement of joints, vestibular input by the movement of head in relation to environment and remaining part of the body, tactile input by contact with horse of different body parts, auditory input, that is by different cues or instructions given by physiotherapist or handler or attender, and because of continuous changing surroundings, visual flow will be also coming. So all this will come simultaneously, and in routine requirement we need all this. Just imagine that you are driving your car, clear? So your proprioceptive input is also important. Some auditory cues, they are also very important. For example, someone is blowing horn, okay, so you have to react to that also. Visual stimuli also you have to consider. For example, the truck is coming from front side, okay, so that is giving you visual stimuli, so you have to act accordingly, clear? So all this we need together: tactile system, proprioceptive system, auditory system, visual system, vestibular system. In car we are also moving, so our head is also moving in the horizontal direction, so that is vestibular input, clear? So all this we need together for day-to-day activity. It may be horse, it may be simple bicycle, or it may be car, clear? So that will be helpful by this hippotherapy. Now this hippotherapy is not possible at clinical setup. Definitely you need proper ground setup. Now here on the left side of the slide you can see that when any person is on horse, so he will be feeling all the directions movement, clear? So when the horse is moving, you will also feel up and down movement, you will also feel anteroposterior movement, you will also feel right to left movement, that is side to side movement, and you will also feel rotation movement, okay? So all these movements are required whenever we are walking, clear? So we can say that it is similar type of the training that we need for gait training, okay? So all these movements, they are useful when the child will walk. Now to prevent the deformity, what we can do? So why there is deformity develop? Okay, so first of all we can think that most of the patients, they are spastic, 90% of the cerebral palsy patients, they are spastic. So the spastic muscle will remain into the shortened position. That shortened position of the muscle will lead to contracture, and due to this contracture there will be deformity, okay? So once this deformity has already developed, then there is no role of physiotherapy, then the patient needs surgery. So what is the role of physiotherapist? To prevent the deformity, okay? So as a physiotherapist, if we can prevent this deformity, we can save the patient from surgery, clear? So how it will be possible to prevent the deformity? So that will be by stretching exercise, by use of the orthotic device. Orthotic device means it is external device that will support any body part, clear? So by the use of orthotic device, different types of the orthotic device we have to use in cerebral palsy patient. Most commonly we are using AFO, that is ankle foot orthosis, okay? If the knee is weak, then we can think of KFO, that is knee ankle foot orthosis. Then third is hip abduction orthosis, so that is to maintain hips into abduction, otherwise there are more chances to develop adductor tightness and adductors contracture, and this adductors contracture, if it is severe, then it may lead to hip joint subluxation, clear? So anyhow we have to prevent this adductor contracture by giving hip abduction orthosis. Then TLSO, so that is thoracolumbar sacral orthosis. SMO, that is supramalleolar orthosis, and FO means simple foot orthosis. Now there are different types of the AFO, so these are the types you can have idea. Solid AFO, posterior lift spring AFO. Solid AFO means there will not be any movement, it will be rigid. Then posterior lift, okay, so that will be covering your calf region, okay? And another is ground reaction force, so that will be helping to overcome the ground reaction force. Hinge AFO, so that will provide movement at ankle joint. And antericurvatum, so that will prevent the knee hyperextension. So all these are different types of AFO. Let us see them. So this is solid AFO without any hinge or without any movement, okay? So it is rigid. Then this is posterior lift, so it is also covering the calf region, so that will be giving inhibitory pressure to calf. So in some extent we can say that it will be also useful to give inhibitory pressure to calf muscle, so we can work on tone of the calf muscle to some extent. Then this is ground reaction force. Clear? This is for anti-recurvatum, so that will prevent this hyperextension of knee. This is hinge AFO, so that will provide movement at ankle joint. This is hip abduction orthosis, so that will maintain hips into abduction, so that is to prevent the adductors contracture. This is for upper limb, so if you have this wrist flexors spasticity, so by giving this splint, okay, you can prevent this contracture of wrist flexor. Now the last approach, that is Vojta approach or Vojta technique. So it was developed by Professor Vaclav Vojta in 20th century, and it is mostly used in European countries. So what is the concept behind this? So over the body there are 10 stimulus zones. They are also known as proprioceptive trigger points, or some literatures they are telling them pressure zones. Okay, so they will be situated on trunk and extremity. So if the pressure is applied over this stimulus zones, so it will start reflex locomotion. So reflex means it is automatic response to stimuli, and locomotion means it is displacement of the body from one place to another place. So this reflex motion or reflex locomotion will initiate rolling, crawling type of the activities in child. So when this Vojta technique is used, so definitely it will initiate the rolling and crawling type of the functional activity. Okay, as well as pressure is applied, so it will be also working as one type of the sensory stimulation technique. And when the child is moving reflexively in rolling or crawling, so at that time resistance is offered by therapist against the movement, so it will also strengthen the muscle. So all these are advantages of Vojta technique, but frankly speaking it is used more in Europe only. In other countries it is used less. These all are the references. If you have any question you can ask. Thank you.